Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. Today we're doing some Warhammer content. I'm going to be going over a 1,000 point army list that I created for Admech. We're going to go over kind of the strengths and weaknesses of it, what I thought, using a combined force, and what units I think performed really well, which ones didn't, and maybe some help for newer players on kind of what they should buy or what they should focus on in 9th edition. Our first unit is the Story Marshal. Now, for a 500 point game, the Story Marshal was a great choice. However, I feel for kind of how I was playing for the 1,000 point game, it really just didn't perform where I was hoping. And the Nephilim, and then with the Nephilim changes. Now, if you're playing Eternal War or just the core rulebook is those missions, I think it's a great option. The reason why I don't think it's as good for Nephilim is mainly due to the way CP has changed pre-game. Previously, you had all your CP at the beginning of the game, with you getting one additional CP at the end of every battle round. However, the new changes make it where for a 1,000 point game, you only get 3 CP to start with an additional 3 if you're playing a 2,000 point game, and you get 1 per turn instead of per battle round, meaning that on your opponent's turn you get 1 CP, and on your turn you get 1 CP. However, due to how Admech tends to rely on stacked buffs, you used a lot of your CP pre-game, and not having all that CP for pre-game buffs or relics, warlord traits, whatever you want to use to get those stacked buffs. We're really struggling right now. So the Marshal was a fantastic unit because you used to get the free warlord trait and warlord relic, and you would just slap on a relic that made it where you got rerolls to hit and to wound, opposed to just a wound, which you get by default, making the Marshal essentially, 150 points of value that you're getting for 55 points with the free relic. That is no longer the case. Now that you have to pay for every single relic and warlord trait, the Marshal is not in as good of a spot. Of course, the Skitarii warlord traits are the best ones we have access to. The default tech priest ones, they're just not as good. Frankly, they're just not as good. I typically wouldn't even bother with them. And you'll see in this list, I didn't take a single tech priest warlord trait. The only warlord trait I took that is only available to tech priest is my Forge World specific one. This list is using Lucius. Lucius is known for being the tankier Forge World. He gives you light cover when being shot against damage 1 weapons, which is fantastic, as typically you're going to be getting shot at by 1 damage weapons for all your infantry, making your infantry a little bit tankier. And they also have a warlord trait that gives, and they have a warlord trait the ability that gives you transhuman. They call it luminescent blessing. What that means is that on a roll of 1, 2, or 3, you cannot be wounded, which is fantastic because most of our infantry is toughness 3, making it where we're less likely to be wounded on 3. Well, we're not. It's not possible for us to be wounded on 3s by things like bolters that have strength 4, or our own weapons like the galvanic rifle that has strength 4. So after playing the game and kind of thinking it through, I think I'm going to end up dropping the Story Marshal. I chucked the Ribbons of the Techno Mortar on him just to make him a little tankier in case I was playing against a unit that had a sniper unit, just because I was worried he was going to get sniped off pretty early due to the pretty bad defensive stats. Of course, they have Lookout. The Lookout rule makes it where you can't be shot if you're next to another infantry, and that infantry is between you and that shooter. Or I think it's actually any unit. I don't think it has to be infantry. Usually with the Marshal, it was Rangers that it was surrounded by. But all in all, I just don't think it's worth it. And the reason why I don't think the reroll wounds was worth it for the points is in a 1,000 point game where you have such few points, rerolling wounds tended to yield best case scenario 50-50 shot, right? If it's a toughness 4 and you're shooting them with galvanic rifles, which is strength 4, you have 50-50 shot of wounding them. The reroll is great. You still have a 50-50 shot with the, after you get the reroll, and you have a 1 to 6 shot of rolling a 1. So you still have the 2 and the 3, which are dud rolls. While to hit is fantastic because we have a ballistic skill of 3 by default with most units. You use the Doctrine Imperative, which makes it 2s for 1 round, and then you kind of just pop off for that 1 round. You basically make every single hit roll that you roll because you re-roll the 1s, and the 1s are the only things that miss. So as long as you don't roll 2 1s in a row, you're good to go, making your damage super consistent. That being said, you have the Dominus for that, right? You can just take the Dominus. You're going to need some Tech Priest to give you the Holy Order buffs anyways. I think that's kind of the way to go now. So all in all, Story Marshal, wouldn't rate it the best. If you're doing maybe a patrol and it's the only HQ unit you're taking, then yeah, take him, give him the thing that gives you the reroll hit and wound, and whatever warlord trait you want. There's some fantastic options in the story, but as a third character, which is how I was running it, I had 3 characters. I just didn't think it was worth the points, so I ended up dropping it for my future list. All right, the next up is the Dominus. Now, my Dominus was my playmaker. It was the thing that kept me in the game and really was just shining for both my games. The way I took the Dominus was the Logi buff, which I'll get into what it does, and I also gave them the Lucius-specific Warlord trait, making them basically the thing that keeps my units alive. In addition, by default, they have the reroll 1 aura. Both of those combined were fantastic. So as you can see here, Logi makes it where AP -1 and AP -2 counts as 0 instead. Huge. Huge for keeping your Rangers and your Ruststalkers alive. On top of that, having the Luminescent Blessing, which makes it where wound rolls of 1, 2, and 3 cannot wound you, is fantastic because most of your infantry is toughness 3, making it where most arms tend to wound on 3. So those 2 combined made my Rangers really sticky my second game, and my first game, they made my Ruststalkers really difficult to deal with. And the beauty of the Dominus, because it's still kind of a threat in melee, with the Electroshock stratagem, which makes it where if you're fighting a Tech Priest, you can make them fight last. Fantastic. Making hero interventions kind of an option because you can heroically intervene if it's your Ruststalkers, make the enemy fight last, have your Ruststalkers pummel them, and hopefully kill them before they can even swing back. If not, cripple the unit, massively reduce the number of hits they're getting in on you. So great bit there. And then obviously on the Rangers is having this huge block of firing line that is really difficult to take off the board using the Luminescent Blessing and Logi, plus rerolling ones to hit. Their default is 3. You use that Doctrine Imperative the turn you want to really lay on the hurt, and you're going to be hitting super hard. So I think my Dominus is really what was doing it, really what won me the games, was really shining really well. Normally, I would just tell you to get a Marshal if you're not playing Nephilim, but if you are playing Nephilim, just take a Dominus, dump the Marshal, leave him at the door. You can just chuck your, if you really, really, really want the Skitarii trait, Warlord traits, just chuck them on a Skitarii unit and save the 55 points because your Dominus will probably be enough. If you're doing a 1,000 or 2,000 point game and you have the extra 55 points anyways, sure, chuck them in. But your Dominus will probably be enough to get you what you need. Next up is the Manipulus, the big boy himself. So my Manipulus obviously is there to buff the Rangers. So the first game really didn't have much of an impact other than the Lance. The Lance actually performed pretty consistently for me. The 2+ default ballistic skill, 3+ that they move, was really consistent. And if I was smarter and I would have put the Remnants of the Techno Martyr on him instead of the Marshal, you basically just keep them with your Ranger 20 block. They make sure that the Rangers can move and shoot without penalty. They increase the AP -1, of additional -1, so it's -2, which, against most harder targets like that have armor contempt, it'll go back down to -1, but just getting that 3+ save to a 4+ save, making a 50-50 instead of better than 50-50 is pretty good. And with the change back to Rapid Fire 2 for Galvanic Fire, having that additional 6 inches, getting you up to an 18-inch Rapid Fire range is fantastic. If you're playing Lucius, you get an additional 3 inches, which is only an extra 1, but 19 inches for Rapid Fire is incredible. Getting 80 shots out if you have a full unit, AP -2, is really brutal. So just having your Manipulus stay with them is great. Artisan is a good choice for them because it gives you the fall back and shoot, and the biggest unit that you're worried about being able to fall back and shoot is most likely your Ranger Blob. Additionally, it makes your war gear stratagems cheaper. So Galvanic Fire, the first time you use it a game, will be 1 CP instead of 2 CP, being able to reliably one turn decide, hey, I'm going to be able to do my galvanic fire instead of having to save up can be huge. All in all, Manipulus, if you're doing a 20-man block of Rangers or 20-man block of Vanguard, having a Manipulus is a huge recommendation. Next up is the unit that everyone fears, the Skitarii Rangers. Skitarii Rangers are really good bang for your buck. They have a great weapon, that 30-inch range by default, heavy to hit hard. Of course, being heavy, you can't move and shoot without the penalty, but we talked about the remnants of the Techno Martyr and how that removes that issue for you. Additionally, you can pay 10 points and get Omni Spec, so even if they're in cover, they don't get a +1 to their save, making that -2 even more brutal, because if they're in cover, it's essentially a -3 AP. Huge. Can be fantastic. Rangers have that 3-inch pregame move, which isn't much, but you have to think of it this way. Most of the objectives are 9 inches away from your starting zone. So having the 3-inch pre-move plus the 6-inch regular move means that you're going to be able to touch those objectives. Turn 1. Turn 1, you can have your 20-man ranger block on a central objective. You have, the characters that can buff them defensively. They have this 20 wound, just massive unit sitting there in the middle objective with, AP -1 and -2 doesn't affect them. If you took Lucius, you can get the transhuman. If they're outside of cover, then they get cover if it's a damage 1 weapon type, making, a lot of fire that you would want to put in something as squishy as Rangers really not very effective against them. And of course, they don't want to waste their more anti-tank rounds or their light vehicle destroying rounds, because you could potentially have destroyers back there. You could have disintegrators or dune crawlers or just iron striders. All those they are going to want to take out first, and they're not going to want to invest their hard-hitting weapons into your Rangers. So that is a great combo. And of course, once you're in the middle of objective with your Rangers, next turn you can do the +1 Doctrine Imperative, because your -3 inches to move doesn't matter. You don't care. -3 inches to move doesn't really play a big factor once you're in the middle of the board. And if you can kind of spook the enemy from moving up early game because they're worried about the galvanic fire, you can potentially hold 2 of the middle objectives pretty reliably. Or just, most of the mission sets, the way it works is you have 2 objectives or more than your opponent. So if they only have 1, then you're still getting max points. So you don't even need to be on the other one. And that's really the beauty of the Rangers and kind of how to play them effectively, in my opinion. Additionally, to the 20-man block, I took 2 5-man blocks. Now, the 5-man blocks just sat in the back. They held my home objectives, or I would have them behind the 20-man, because I would push up with the 20-man, and then I would just leave my little 5-man there to hold the objective once the 20-man was coming through. Or the 5-man would just do the objective, right? The 20-man would be in the front, be scary, scare the enemy, and meanwhile, I have my little 5-man group behind them doing Nephilim data or something of that nature. Or if I, pushed on the other side with my Rust Stalkers, I'd have them behind the Rust Stalkers for the same reason, to hold the point once the Rust Stalkers chew up everything and be there. So they work great for that as well. The 3-inch pre-game move, even for your 5-man units, is really helpful, because maybe you don't have a terrain feature big enough to hide your all your guys in, and you need something. The 3-inch move could be the difference between having light cover before turn 1 and not having light cover before turn 1. And when you really need that cover, especially with a 5-man, because you're not going to dump your buffs into it, it can be a big deal. Next up is the Rust Stalkers. Now, my first game, the Rust Stalkers carried me. After my 20-man Ranger unit got obliterated turn 1 by a Catan Shard, I needed something. And that something was my Rust Stalkers. My Dominus stayed with my Rust Stalkers, kept them buffed defensively, and they just tore through the enemy. I was able to push up the right side with their 8-inch movement. They're incredibly fast, and they were able to get the 3 wounds on the Catan Shard. I was able to las cannon them before that, so I did 6 wounds to Catan Shard in one turn, which is incredible because you can only do 3 wounds a phase. So after that, the dude was scared. He had to run his Catan Shard back. Really saved me, because if not, those mortal wounds it was dishing out would probably have just tabled me. So my Rust Stalkers really got me back in the game turn 2 by just dealing out a ton of damage. Then turn 1 by dealing out a ton of damage and charging the Catan Charge. And then turn 2, we were able to get into their warriors, Necron warriors, that were trying to push up on the middle objective. wiping them. Yeah, they were performing great for me. The reason why they're just so good is because there are two stratagems you can use with them. One gives any Scutari unit +1 strength, meaning that even if it's a toughness 5 creature, you're going to be able to get that strength to 6, so you're still wounding on 3s. Or if it's a toughness, 4, you're going to be wounding on 3s anyways. Additionally, you can pay 1 CP to increase the number of attacks by 1. So for every model, you get 1 additional attack. 4 attacks for the regular base, and then 5 attacks for the general, or I mean the sergeant for the precept. Great. It's great. It's a ton of attacks. That AP -3 is fantastic. Plus, if you roll any 6s on the wounds, you get additional mortal wounds. They're doing great damage. Then to help them kind of survive long enough and to get into melee, what you want to do is you want to move them from cover to cover. I often just advance them turn 1 or turn 2 because I'm not really trying to advance and charge. I'm more worried about getting them somewhere really central, but somewhere where they're fully in cover to make best use of that Wasteland Stalker ability, which means that you get an additional armor whenever you're in cover. So you get +1 for being in light cover, which gets you to a 3 save. Then you get an additional +1 while being in cover, getting you to a 2 save. A 2-up save is fantastic. If you have the Dominus with them, either ordering AP -1 and -2, plus that Luminescent Blessing giving you Transhuman, they're really difficult to deal with, even though that they're only 3 toughness and their stat block says they only have a 4-up save. Suddenly you have a 2-up save and you're chilling. You're doing great. You're doing fantastic. Anyone gets anywhere near you, that 8-inch movement is going to come out. 8-inch move charge is really scary on a very small board like 1,000 points. They can, once you get them in the middle and like a big terrain feature, they can really zone the enemy out and make them really kind of scared to move in, which allows your Iron Striders to kind of pick off the enemy from a distance. So they were big and they really saved me game 1 against those Necrons. The next unit is the Iron Strider. Everyone knows the Iron Strider that's played Admech. They're the big walking chickens. They're the thing that most people tend to be really annoyed with because of how good our Cognus las cannons are. Our Cognus las cannons are 40 inches, 2 shots, strength 9, -3 AP, and D3 +3 damage, making them super consistent. You're at least doing 4 damage every time you shoot the thing. You're most likely going to get a hit because it's 3-up ballistic skill. 3-up ballistic skill plus their core again. Their core again, meaning that your Dominus lets them reroll those hits. You do Doctrine Imperative that turn, they're rerolling the 1s to hit, and they hit on 2s. It's incredible. 9 strength means you're reliably wounding on 3 or better, and -3 AP, you're probably getting through it. Of course, there are units that have incredible invuln saves, and that might be the case. You're most likely going to be doing pretty good damage on a fairly durable chassis. I mean, it's got 6 wounds. It's got toughness 6, 3-up save by default. If you're playing Lucius, so they're trying to plank it down with small arms fire, they're probably going to get a +1 to that save, making it a 2-up save. So they're surprisingly durable. And 10-inch movement. I'm pretty sure there is a stratagem that gives you an automatic advance of 6 inches, which is fantastic. Of course, you would take the -1 because of the assault weapon, but you can still advance and shoot. So if it's the same turn that you're doing your Doctrine Imperative for the +1 to shoot, you're still hitting on 3s. Or if it's not, you're still taking on 4s. It's just a 50-50 shot with a 16-inch movement on top of that. You can really catch someone outright, just, not expecting it. All of a sudden you're there. And if you're playing something like Mars that automatically gets the reroll, you get to reroll 1 hit roll per unit. Yeah, they're super, super consistent. I also tried out the auto gun though. And the auto gun, I wasn't too impressed with. 7 strength means it is wounding pretty consistently on 3s, even against some vehicles, which is great, or wounding 4 on a lot of vehicles. Still fantastic. However, the -1 AP is really what was letting me down. The -1 AP makes it where anything with armor contempt, AP 0. So most Space Marines, if you shoot it at a Space Marine, they're got a 3-up save. And if they miss the 3-up save, yeah, you do 2 damage, which is nice. That's a dead Marine. They're probably not failing all that many saves. And it's only 6 shots. So if you're doing a mass chicken build where you're just basically taking chickens and that's it, yeah, it takes las cannons to deal with the tanks, and then take a bunch of auto cannons to deal with the smaller targets. But I wouldn't bring an auto cannon if you're only taking 1 or 2 Iron Striders. I just feel like the Rangers, if you have a 20 blocker Rangers, they kind of fill that role. But if you don't want to take the Rangers and you want to take Iron Striders instead exclusively, yeah, they're great. They're a great option. Personally, I wouldn't want to have to buy a ton of Iron Striders because I think they're like $60 a model. I got 2 of mine through the Christmas box, which was a much better deal. But yeah, if you're buying them outright, singles, not used or anything, you're going to spend a ton of money trying to do mass Iron Striders. So if you're a newer player, I really wouldn't recommend it. I would just try and get those, start collecting boxes, things like that nature, or those Christmas boxes if you can find one at your local hobby store and get some that way. $60 a model is not, it's not very efficient. They're only 75 or 85 points if you have the last cannon. So you would need a ton of them to fill out an entire list. So although they are incredibly strong, just spamming them I don't think is the way. Additionally, because their melee weapons aren't great. Now they do have a 3-up weapon skill because you can take them as dragoons. However, if you do that, you're not going to have the auto cannon or the las cannon. So think of it well. The Dragoon is a fantastic model, but we're not going to cover that. Next up is one of my favorite units is the dogs. Now the dogs aren't the best unit, but they're good boys. So that's all you need to know. You can build these guys 2 different ways, as Sulfur Hounds or as Raiders. Now the Raiders are technically how I like to play them, but I personally, when I was building my models, I used the Sulfur Hounds heads with the Raider bodies of the Riders, so that I have the Saint Bernard kind of looking heads with the rifles, as you can see shown there. I'm not as big of a fan of the weird skull look. I think it's, I don't know. It's very Admech, but I think the cute little dog faces that are also flamethrowers is better. So first glance at the stat block, you're gonna think, okay, galvanic carbines, they're just 18 inches and they're basically just rangers that can use it, can advance and shoot. What's the big deal? Well, the big deal is they have a 9-inch pregame move. You might be thinking, 9-inch pregame move, who cares, right? You just said that the Rangers can consistently get on the middle objectives, so why do I need a pregame move if I can just get my Rangers on turn 1? Well, you need something in front of the Rangers, right? You need something to kind of screen them out. You need something to kind of bait the charges so they're not going for your Rangers instead. And you can use these guys as a very mobile way to get things like engage in all fronts. You can use them to plank off enemy characters as they ignore lookout. They're rather versatile for what they are. Being able to ignore lookout, plus get 1 additional mortal wounds if you roll a 6 to wound is great. Being able to move 12 inches on top of that means that they can be where the enemy isn't expecting them. I kind of like to use mine just on the outskirts of the board to get me engaged in all fronts, plank off some damage here and there. I don't always go for characters, as if I don't, I know the Raiders by themselves probably aren't going to be able to down a character typically, but I did get really lucky against that Necron player, and I did snipe one of his characters that was being used to revive his Necron troops, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, having these dogs that were on the other side of the board in the quadrant, but they were like 30 inches away, moved 12 inches up because I was playing Lucius. I also had 21 inches on my galvanic carbine, and I was in range, and I just got lucky, rolled 2 6s to wound, and was able to get 5 wounds out there and just outright killed them. So they can be really devastating to weaker characters. Additionally, you can use them like my second game. I used them to charge one of the tanks. Tank obviously didn't have any melee weapons, so it didn't kill them outright the first turn. They had to wait to the next turn and waste all their shots and their giant tank to kill 3 dogs. The dogs are, not worth very many points. I think it's 18 points each. So having to waste, I think those tanks are like 200 points or something roughly of firepower to kill, 82 points, just makes it where my las cannons can get into place. My las chickens were able to get some extra shots off before getting eviscerated. And I was able to kill 2 tanks because the dogs were able to stop the one. I was able to bracket the other one so it missed all of its shots turn 1, and then that one was full health, so I charged it with the dogs, slowed it down as well so that it couldn't hit my las cannon. And my las cannon was able to swing down and bracket that one down quite a bit. So I was using these dogs very effectively to slow down enemy threat, because if they don't screen effectively in front of their tank, all of a sudden, boom, you got dogs in them. If they're not paying attention to kind of like their characters, or if they're being too aggressive with some of their weaker characters, you can snipe them off. And worst case scenario, they just get charged and you run them away. You just chuck them in the middle of the board to kind of bait out some charges. Hopefully get a unit to move out into the middle of the board, run away. Now they're not in cover. You can see them pretty easily, and then you shoot them down with something else. So all in all, a great little tricky unit that you can, if used effectively, can be very impactful, but is a little harder to get value out of. The last thing I want to talk about is just real quick. I want to go over exactly what Solar Blessing says. Solar Blessing is the Lucius Dogma. So if you're playing Lucius, which is a fantastic option for new players, it is probably the easiest of the Forge Worlds to get great value out of really quickly. And since you're new, you're going to be making more mistakes, right? And having some extra durability can be a big, big, big help when you're first starting out. So basically, anytime you're shot with a weapon that does 1 damage, you get counted as having light cover, which is a +1 to your save. If you're already in light cover, you will not receive that extra +1. But in addition, you'll get 3 inches on all your range for any weapon, your entire army. So, you might not be as good at eyeballing distances yet, and you might not want to have to measure every single thing out, which would slow down the game immensely. So having that little extra 3 inches can, make or break a shot, especially with something shorter range, like the Vanguard that have 18 inches, or if you're playing with the Flamers on the robots, having that extra 3 inches is really nice. Or that extra inch for rapid fire can be the thing that makes or breaks rapid fire for your galvanic volley. So all those are really good. Plus, I didn't use it in this list, but I am definitely running it next list. You can take Solar Flare. What Solar Flare lets you do, it's a relic, so you have to spend 1 CP before the game. It'll let you teleport your unit, any unit that's core, so your Rangers, your Rust Stalkers, or, in theory, your chickens, anywhere on the board, as long as they're farther away than 9 inches from another enemy. So you put your Rangers middle of the board, turn 1, you have this big, just unmoving, super tanky block. They can't deal with it. They can't get rid of it. They're thinking, oh, well, okay, this really sucks, but I can't push up. All of a sudden, your 5-man Ranger gets there and can take over that point. Maybe there's really good cover at that point or something, so you feel confident just leaving a 5-man there. And then you teleport those Rangers to the other side of the board, somewhere they're really not expecting. Maybe they have a gap, or maybe they shifted all their units to one side to try to hide from your Rangers, and all of a sudden they're over there now, and they're, because they're closer than 18 inches, you're galvanic firing them, and it can just be absolutely brutal if you stack it with the turn that you're using your Ballistic Skill +1, the Doctrine Imperative right here, the Protector Imperative. You can just absolutely, just out of nowhere, this huge threat showing up, hitting them with 80 shots. It's really brutal. But, Lucius, like I said, great starting choice. That transhuman buff giving you a lot of durability. You can only get that Luminescent Blessing Warlord trait if you're playing Lucius. So if you are a new player, you really want that tankiness, I would highly encourage you to do this. If you enjoyed this content and you kind of want to see more Warhammer content, or if you want me to go over how I make these lists, leave a comment or something below, maybe like the video, and I'll go over it. I did use Battlescribe to make this list, and this document you saw here was automatically created via Battlescribe. If you're unfamiliar with Battlescribe, it's basically abandonware at this point. It's not being updated at all, so please don't give money to Battlescribe app, as the people who are actually putting in all the hard work and updating the information that goes into Battlescribe aren't receiving a dime of it. You were unaware of that. Hopefully there'll be some better alternatives soon, but until then, Battlescribe is really the only option. Thank you for watching. Again, if you want to see more Warhammer, or specifically Adeptus Mechanicus content, please let me know, and have a nice day.